which introduced women representation in 1984. But then, in 1963, again His Holiness Dalai Lama felt strongly that we have to have a democratic constitution as well. And why it is democratic is, he said there has to be provision of impeachment. Impeachment of whom? Impeachment of the Dalai Lama. Now in 1963, 4 years after we lost our country, who would have thought to impeach the Dalai Lama? But His Holiness mandated, insisted despite protests, the provision for impeachment has to stay, because if you want to be democratic, then everybody has to be subservient to the constitution, including the Dalai Lama. So that was his vision. And then over 50 years we have grown and we have consolidated democracy system in exile. So this is one of the legacies of His Holiness that is not known, and it's very important that His Holiness has what we call single-handedly given democracy to us, and then we are doing the best we can to embrace and move forward. And now we will be, soon we'll be celebrating 56 years of democracy in exile. Now, as for the situation inside Tibet, recently Chinese government published the 13th white paper on Tibet. Now, why I say 13 is when you publish a white paper, normally from market point of view, you want to sell something, you want to sell a brand, which is very important, then you come out with a white paper. And for governments, when you want to project some issue very important in black and white, then you come out with white paper. But then the Chinese government has come out with 13 white paper on Tibet. I'm not trying to compare, but for Xinjiang they have published only 2. For Inner Mongolia they have not published even a single one. On Hong Kong they have published only 1. But on Tibet they have published 13. Every 2 or 3 years, they were, in a sense, they were forced to come out with a white paper to counter the narrative of Tibetans, especially exile. In that sense, with our friends around the world, despite the Chinese power, despite the money that they have, despite the efforts, the narrative of Tibet has prevailed, which is our narrative. That is, Tibet is still under occupation, there is political repression, environmental destruction, economic marginalization, cultural assimilation, and social discrimination. This is the narrative of Tibet. And this is the narrative endorsed and supported by our friends around the world, and Chinese government has to come out with white paper every 2-3 years, and then we know it's, I think, too little, too late for their attempts. Nonetheless, they have come out. And in this white paper, interestingly, on the history section, this is very new. For the first time, they have said that Tibet has been part of China since antiquity. Now, this is a very new version. This is historical revisionism, you can clearly see. Tibet has been part of China since antiquity. But the white paper of 2004 says Tibet became part of China in 13th century. That there is a contradiction between the two. If you go by the Republican era, then some of the Chinese authors have said Tibet became part of China during the Republican time. But then if you go by the 17-point agreement, which was forced on Tibetans, but signed on May 23rd, 1951, the preamble of the 17-point agreement says, Tibet shall return to the motherland. Now, if Tibet was returning to the motherland in 1951, then clearly Tibet was not part of China before 1951. So even in Chinese documents, there's a contradiction. 13th century, 1951, or the early 20th century, or since antiquity. So this blatant historical revisionism to claim that Tibet has been part of China since antiquity will not be believed and supported by the international community, but this is one aspect. Another part of white papers even questions His Holiness Dalai Lama's commitment to nonviolence. Now we all know for a fact that His Holiness has traveled 50 plus countries. He has been awarded 150 some awards and degrees, including the Nobel Peace Prize for his commitment to non-violence. And here is Chinese government questioning His Holiness' commitment to non-violence. So it does get a little ridiculous, but this is the attempt. And then other chapter also claims that China has made a lot of progress in Tibet, and Tibetans are very happy and content. Now we all know for a fact that if Tibetans are happy and content, I for one can say, and I think many of the Tibetans here in this room will support me, that if Chinese government really truly believe that Tibetans in Tibet are happy and content, then they can have a referendum in Tibet. And they can choose a Tibetan candidate and a Chinese candidate. And let them vote and decide who they want to choose. I'm pretty sure Tibetan vote for a Tibetan leader, not a Chinese leader. That will determine whether Tibetans are actually content and happy in Tibet or not. Now, so they also, in a way, questions our commitment to, they also question our middle way policy itself. As you know, Central Tibetan Administration, as stated by the President Singh Somla, we are committed to seek genuine autonomy within China and within the framework of the Chinese Constitution. We believe this is a win-win proposition for both the Chinese government and the Tibetan people. Yet, they are questioning what does middle way mean and whether it's a springboard for independence or not. And then, I think a day or two later, the Vice Minister, former Vice Minister who was in charge of the United Front, Tu Wei-chun himself confessed. He said, in recent years, the Dalai clique or the Central Tibetan Administration have made efforts and create awareness about the middle way approach. Hence, they are reverting to that effort. That means, in recent years, Central Tibetan Administration has launched a campaign to create awareness about the middle way approach, and there is the effort to counter the awareness campaign. So you can clearly see the Chinese government feeling the pinch of our truth and people around the world supporting our justice for Tibetan people. In short, no matter how many white papers Chinese government come out with, I think truth is with the Tibetan people. Justice is what we seek. Now, often when I travel around, I'm always asked, why did you take this job? It's such a difficult job. The Chinese government is so powerful. Do you think you have any hope? And I always say, I'm sure the same story was told when Nelson Mandela was in prison for 28 years, of which 8 years in solitary confinement. I'm sure many of if you read the news accounts during those days, Nelson Mandela was written off by some saying, well, forget about restoring democracy in South Africa. He cannot be released from the prison. But we all saw Nelson Mandela walking tall out of the prison and restoring democracy in South Africa. I'm sure same thing was said about Northern Ireland. Recently, I met one of the leaders of the Northern Ireland, and a Canadian general was involved in the Good Friday Agreement. At one time, Northern Ireland was intractable issue that there was no solution at all. But then the Good Friday was signed, Northern Ireland also happened. And the best story that I have is about the Berlin Wall. When I met former President of Poland, Lech Walesa, and he told me, then German Vice Chancellor and the Foreign Minister was visiting him. And then the Foreign Minister of West Germany asked Lech Walesa, what does he think of all the students and youth surrounding the Berlin Wall? And he said, Berlin Wall is going to come down. You better be prepared. And then Foreign Minister of West Germany said, well, I would like to see that kind of trouble, but it's not going to happen in my lifetime. 2 weeks later, Berlin Wall came down. Even the Foreign Minister of West Germany at that time did not believe the Berlin Wall was coming down, and it did. So similarly, we might believe this powerful China is difficult for many countries. But like the Great Wall that they built to prevent barbarians from entering into China, but the Great Wall was of no use when actually invaders came to China. So they are building firewalls to prevent information from getting into China. But this firewall will also give way to truth and justice of the Tibetan people. When that day comes, as per the aspirations of the Tibetan people inside Tibet, as per the 138 Tibetans who committed self-immolation, who burned themselves, of which 23 are women and 7 nuns. Very sad, very unfortunate. But their aspirations are the same as aspirations of 6 million Tibetans and Tibetans outside Tibet. That is, they want to see the return of His Holiness Dalai Lama to Tibet and freedom for Tibetans. That aspiration, that dream, my dear friends, will come true soon. When that happens, that will be one of the best stories of the 21st century. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Sikyong, Dr. Lobsang Sangay, for your very moving speech and also accepting the award. We truly appreciate your strong leadership and unwavering support to the vision of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Ladies and gentlemen, another big round of applause to Dr. Lobsang Sangay. Thank you very much. Now it's dinner time. Before that, I would like to make an announcement. We have silent auction tables on my left-hand side. There are very interesting collectible items. Whenever you get a chance, please feel free to visit those tables, and we would appreciate bidding the items there. Our ushers or the servers will come and get each table to the dining table, but our guests, I think they can proceed for the dinner first, and others, please remain seated. Our server will come and get your table to the serving table. Thank you very much. And while we have our dinner, we will have a live performance and entertainment by Gain Logisringla and XT Group. In their group, they have Gain Logisringla, Gain Sring Penzola, Gain Lobsang Gazola, Gain Seten Undubla, Gain Tenzin Chodala, and Gain Tenzin Chugila. So while we have our dinner, they will perform. They will give a live performance to us. And I was just reminded that we have an open bar just outside that curtain. So if anybody would like to have drinks, please feel free to visit there and have drinks. Thank you very much.